All right, welcome back to another episode of the Organizedpreneur Podcast Launchpad. This is where we are helping you to turn your calling into content that changes lives by launching, growing, and streamlining your podcast while keeping your business organized and thriving. And so I am your host, Aldreama Harper, and today we're diving into something that I call the Podcast Powerplay System. I'm super excited about this because we're going to be talking about a streamlined workflow that takes the stress out of podcasting and helps you to stay consistent and efficient. And so I hope you are as excited as I am about this particular episode. Because the one thing that I hear all the time, and that is that when it comes to podcasting, there are a lot of moving parts to launching a podcast. And that is true. That is very true. But when you have a streamlined process, a workflow, something that helps you to stay consistent and organized, it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And so my response to that is that it doesn't have to be. So if you have ever struggled with keeping up with your podcast and felt overwhelmed with editing or just wish there was some kind of system to make it all easier, this episode is for you. Because today I'm going to walk you through a 4-part system to help you streamline your podcasting process. So I hope you're ready. Let's go. So the 4 parts, let me go ahead and give those to you now. So the 4-part process is planning, producing, publishing, and promoting. Planning, producing, publishing, and promoting. So with planning, we're going to talk about how to organize and script your episodes with Notion or Google Docs and ChatGPT. And in step 2, we're going to talk about how to record a high quality audio and repurpose content with Riverside and Cast Magic. And then step 4 is to publish. And I'm just going to share with you how to quickly upload and optimize your podcast on Spotify. And then lastly, we'll talk about promoting and how to generate content using AI and market your episodes effortlessly. So by the end of this episode, you'll have a repeatable system that will save you time and help you create high quality, engaging podcast episodes without the burnout. Does that sound good? Okay, so let's dive in. So part 1 is planning. And a lot of times when I am talking to clients and newbie podcasters, this is overlooked or there's a lot of overthinking. Okay, so it's either overlooked on one side, and then the other side, it's people overthink it. Okay, they overthink it to where it can cause you to feel paralyzed. Like I've had clients that will take weeks and weeks to think about their podcast title, because they can hardly, make up their mind about, well, what am I going to call this? And so they may have, an idea somewhat about the content that they want to share and things like that, but get stuck in naming their podcast. And so now we're not going to dive deep into that, but I just want you to know that if you've at least gotten through this part of it, then the rest of this is just going to be a piece of cake. And so it shouldn't be something that you are completely overwhelmed with. And what I'm here to help you do is to help you simplify things, and by sharing some simple frameworks and formulas and strategies to help you stay out of overwhelm. That is what the Organizedpreneur podcast is all about, to help you launch your podcast with ease, effortlessly, and have a nice flow. Okay, so all right, so let's dive into it. So part one is the planning, and this is where you organize and script your podcast out. You create some type of a script, right? All right, let's get into it. And so part one is to organize and script your podcast episode. And this is the first step to making your podcast workflow smoother, which is planning. And if you skip this step, you will end up scrambling to come up with topics and recording at the last minute and wasting time. And we don't want you to do that. Not around here. We don't do that around here. We get organized. And so that is going to help you stop feeling so overwhelmed. And so what I'm going to be recommending throughout this episode is how to do some of these things, and I'm going to refer to some resources that some are paid and some are free. And so let's get organized. So the first thing you want to do in your planning phase is to set up either a Notion database or a database on your Google Drive. So if you have a Gmail account, you have Google, okay? And so what you want to do is to setting up your database. You can create a spreadsheet to store all of your podcast content. And so what you want to include are these 4 items. You want to create or include a content calendar to plan your upcoming episodes. You also want to use Google Doc to create a template so that you have an episode template to keep everything structured. You want to have a framework for your episodes, right? Then you want to make sure that you have a guest tracker. Especially if you do interviews, this is really, really key because there are other moving parts. Also, if you are appearing on other people's podcasts as a guest, you want to have some type of way to track what you're doing. So you're going to need a calendar. You're going to need to keep up with your episode with a template. You're also going to need a publishing and promotion checklist, and that is something that you can do by creating a spreadsheet. Okay? So that is step 1, planning. Get yourself organized. Make sure that you have your script organized. Know exactly what you're going to be talking about. Keep a good record of your episodes and everything regarding your episodes, whether you are a guest or if you have a guest. Okay? All right, step 2 is to generate your episode ideas with ChatGPT. So I don't know about you, but I do need help from time to time generating ideas. And in fact, I need a lot of help. So let's make episode planning even easier by using ChatGPT. Okay? And so instead of you sitting there staring at a blank page, you want to use some type of AI or large language model platform to help generate ideas. so that you're not staring at a blank page. This is going to help you to generate episode ideas and outlines. That's what you want to do because you already know your stuff. You already know your subject. You already know your topics. You already know. And what I mean by you already know your topics, you already know a lot of what you want to talk about. You are the expert in this. And so this is going to help you plan your episodes and make that planning process even easier. And so if you're using a tool like ChatGPT, all you want to do is simply just create a simple prompt to get 10 episode titles according to your niche and one that focuses on your audience's biggest struggle. Okay? So maybe it's like, ChatGPT, can you help me to generate 10 podcast episode ideas for my XYZ niche that focuses on XYZ 123, whatever their struggle is. Okay? And so this way you have a way to expedite the process and you're not sitting there staring at a blank page trying to think of ways to create your episodes. And you don't have to, not that you don't have to think, but this will help you expedite the process. And so this is like your partner and your thought partner, right? And so this platform, if you're not using it, can help you draft your episode outlines and write engaging intros and outros and even suggest some compelling hooks to keep your listeners engaged, right? So that is number 2. Number 3 is produce. So we've talked about planning and then we've talked about generating episodes. So we're in the planning stage, sorry. So step 1, we were talking about using Notion or Google Drive to store all of your content so that you stay organized. And then in step 2 of this planning phase, we talked about generating your episode ideas using AI and ChatGPT. Okay, let's move on to part 2, which is producing. This is where you want to record and repurpose your content. Okay, so here are the steps that you need when it comes to recording and repurposing your content. Because here's the thing, I don't know about anyone else. I repurpose all of my content. Okay, and so if you want to really collapse the time that you spend on content creation, you want to make sure that you incorporate some type of repurposing strategy in your process. And right now we're talking about the production side or producing. Okay. So let's talk about recording. Okay. Record your episodes using Riverside. This is my top recommendation. This is what I recommend to all of my clients. This is what I recommend to anyone that asks me, what should I use to record? Okay, and there are a number of reasons why, and I'll get to that in a second. But once you have planned your episode, it is time to record. And again, this is my go-to tool, which is Riverside. Okay, it is a high-quality recording platform that captures separate audio and video tracks, making editing so much easier. I used to recommend Audacity, which you can still use Audacity. It is absolutely free. And so remember, I said that I was going to share free tools as well as some that may not be free. So a free tool would be Audacity. But there's a huge learning curve when you are editing in Audacity. It's not impossible, but it's a huge there is a learning curve there. And so, but when you use Riverside, there's not as big of a learning curve. In fact, you can edit by just selecting the text inside of the episode or the recording. Once you record, it is going to do pretty much everything else with the click of a button. Okay? And so here are a few tips that you want to consider when you're recording. Number one, you want to find a quiet space with minimal background noise. Now, I will tell you, a good microphone and a good recording software like Riverside will help you in that process, because your mic is going to help. You want to select the type of mic that's going to help you in the noise reduction, but you can also take care of a lot of that inside of the recording software, recording platform that you use. So, but again, find a quiet place with minimal noise, use a quality mic. Okay. I recommend searching Amazon, find a Yeti mic or a mic that, you can afford. Yeti mics are really good and affordable. And make sure you do a quick sound check before you hit the record button, right? And so those are a few tips for recording. Now let's move on to step 2 with the repurposing, because remember I said record and repurpose. This is the production side of it. Okay. So when repurposing, you want to make sure that you repurpose all or as much of your podcast episodes as possible. So you want to use tools like CastMagic. CastMagic.io is where the magic happens, because once you record your episode, you don't stop there. You got to repurpose your content, remember? So you can use this particular platform, and it is not free, but you can actually look this up. Just do a Google search and look it up and see what the price is now. When I purchased CastMagic, I got it for a one-time price on AppSumo now, and I'm almost certain it's not available now at that price. So upload your audio to CastMagic, and it will generate your show notes, your timestamps. It will create blog post summaries, social media snippets, all of these things when it comes to repurposing of your content. And there's some repurposing that will be done inside of the Riverside platform. So these are actually 2 softwares that you can use that I highly recommend for your repurposing, the repurposing of your content inside of part 2, which is the production side. Okay? So what we have done already, we've planned, we've produced, and let's move to the publishing side. This is where it gets really, really sweet. So I recommend Spotify. Now, remember I said, and for those of you that don't know, much about podcasting platforms, there are a lot of other platforms out there to host your podcast. I recommend Spotify because it is free. And because Spotify has partnered with Riverside, it makes it so much easier to publish it with the click of a button. Okay? So once you've recorded and repurposed your episode, it's time to get it out into the world. And so once you've set up your Spotify account, right? Then you go into Spotify for podcasters, upload your episodes, add your optimized title and description. You can use ChatGPT for this, and then include your show notes and timestamps from CastMagic. There you go. There you go. So that's step 1. Step 2, Optimize for discoverability, because if nobody knows who you are, then you could be the best podcasting pro, or you could have the best podcasting episode or the best podcasting show on the planet. But if nobody can find you, that's just what you are. All right. So you want to use key words in your episode title and your descriptions to make your podcast easier to find. So a quick tip on that: instead of saying marketing tips for coaches, say the 3-step podcast marketing plan for service-based entrepreneurs. Now, that can be found and not get buried, right? So that is step 2 of the publishing plan. So publishing is part 3, and I just gave you the 2 steps in that plan. Okay. Move on to part 4. Promote. You've done the work. Create your episode. Let's go. Step 1, you're going to use ChatGPT to create social media captions. For example, you can write a LinkedIn post promoting your latest episode. I will typically do a podcast alert or announcement on the platforms where I am most active. And so create a social media caption, create a LinkedIn post, write one promoting your latest podcast on whatever the topic is, and include 3 or 4 takeaways and a call to action. Right? And so some other ideas would be audiograms and reels, and you can do that from Cast Magic. Or you can also do that in Riverside. You can also do some quotes and key takeaways from your episodes. And lastly, but most importantly, you want to make sure you have an email list. Email marketing is by far the best way to drive listeners to your episodes. Okay? So I hope this is making sense to you. So let's just recap and quickly go over what we just covered. Okay? This is your Podcast Powerplay System in 4 steps. All right, I hope you're ready. Number 1, plan, organize, and script your podcast to generate ideas with ChatGPT. Notion is the place that you want to capture. Notion and or Google Drive. Plan. Step 2, produce, record in Riverside and repurpose with Cast Magic. Number 3, publish, upload, and optimize on Spotify. Number 4, promote. You can use software, AI-generated content for marketing. All right. I think you got it. So, I'd like to know, what is your biggest takeaway from this episode? So if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, you can actually drop me a comment. So if you're listening on Spotify or Amazon Music or Apple or even on YouTube, you can let me know. I would really love to know if this was instrumental for you. Let me know what your takeaways were. Your podcast should not feel like a chore. It should be a powerful tool to grow your business. I want you to go out there and launch with confidence. Join me next time as we dive deeper into more topics on business, podcasting, productivity, and motivation. And as always, thank you for joining me on the Organizedpreneur Podcast Launchpad. Remember, your voice matters, your message matters, and your ministry matters. And with God's guidance, let's impact lives through podcasting. Until next time, this is Aldreama signing off for now. Be blessed.